What a game in Charlotte last night. So North Carolina beat South Carolina 31-17, and it's a huge rivalry. Huge rivalry, but I'm not talking about Gamecocks Tar Heels. The big rivalry I'm talking about right now, it rages on, is me versus the model. I shared with you, candidly, last week, the model loved North Carolina. Loved them. I called the model names because it is, after all, an inanimate object. It doesn't have feelings, I don't think, except about Texas. And I not only forsook the model, I actively went in the other direction and I took South Carolina. And how dumb did I feel last night? I didn't have as bad a night as a South Carolina offensive lineman, mind you, but it was tough on me. It was tough on me because I don't know, in the words of Richard Marx, I guess I just should have known better. So here it is, Mac Brown. We talked about Tez Walker all week, and he was not declared eligible, and I will drag the NCAA, rightfully so, in just a second for that. But we got a padlock stat. We got a good old-fashioned padlock stat, first one of week 1. Padlock stats, for those of you who are new around here, those are the stats where if I told you this before kickoff, you wouldn't have needed to watch the game. You would have already known the outcome. Well, if I told you South Carolina was going to have -2 yards rushing, you would not have needed to watch the game. Yes, that is with sack yardage included, which is significant because of the next stat I'm going to give you. South Carolina allowed 16 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. So there was significant yardage shaved off that rushing total for sack yardage. It is the most sacks allowed by North Carolina in a game since 2000. We were fresh off Y2K. The last time a disaster of this magnitude happened to an offensive line in Columbia, South Carolina. We don't talk about losers first. We talk about winners. Hats off to North Carolina. As I admitted earlier, and I will admit at least once more, I was wrong, and I should have believed a little bit more, a lot more, in this defensive front. So, in August, on every show we do, we lead it with what? We lead it with practice intel, team whispers, insiders' points of view on teams. And there I was about 3 weeks ago telling you the guys over at Inside Carolina, specifically Ben Sherman, they were communicating with us that this defensive line was ready to shock the world. They had kids like Tamari Fox, who didn't even play last year, as well as guys who have been highly recruited guys in the past and just haven't, as a collective, performed up to the level of expectation. They kept telling us, Ben Sherman and company over there kept telling us, this is for real this time. This is not a drill. And I was just slow to believe because I've bought in and been bitten before, counting on any kind of even average improvement from North Carolina defensively. And yet, here it is last night. Now, some of you, because I know it's 1 week sample size, you'll still sit there and say, well, this doesn't prove much because South Carolina just was like ghosts. I mean, you might as well put 5 Chalai on the offensive line. They would have had a better luck stopping that pass rush than South Carolina actually did. And look, I get where you're going with that. It's an argument that is as old as time. After 1 week, anyone who does something good, there's always a yeah but or well but. I'm just going to judge it based off what it looked like, and it looked like harassment all night. Like, you do that stuff on the streets, and a lot of y'all are waking up in jail this morning. But you didn't. You did it where you were supposed to. So no Devontae Walker at receiver for Carolina, which many of you DM me and just asked me to refer to North Carolina as. You said, I don't need an apology. I don't need you to admit you were wrong. I just want you to call us Carolina in the game recap. So there you go. That's fair. I think those conditions are fair. So Carolina, without Devontae Walker, still inexplicably ineligible, and we don't even have a ruling on his status from the NCAA, apparently on a long Labor Day weekend vacation up there. They still had 5 receivers with 3+ receptions. They averaged 11.2 yards per catch. That's getting it done. Josh Downs is gone. Tez Walker not eligible, and still they didn't really miss a beat. At least to the common eye, they didn't miss a beat. South Carolina's got real issues. I got a new game I want to play with you around here, and that is when there is a perceived crisis on a team, don't we need some scale around here? Like, as a staff, we've decided we need some scale. So we're either going to call these casual concerns or credible concerns or outright crisis. And I'm not ready to say crisis yet. I'm teetering on it. But at the very least, the offensive line is a very credible concern. You are not a casual if you're worried about the South Carolina offensive line. They averaged on the ground last night negative 0.1 yards per carry. Mathematically, it should be impossible, but when you tack on sack yardage and tackles for loss, yes, their net result last night was every time they tried to run the ball, they went backwards. On average, they went backwards. And then I think to myself, some things in college football get cleaned up. You know, it happens every year. It will happen with this team somewhere. But do I really watch the guys they trotted out there last night and think to myself, oh, that'll be a completely different looking unit when they go to Georgia in 2 weeks? You know, when they play Mississippi State and senior on the defensive front, oh, they'll be fine by then. Hey, Florida's defensive front can get after you. We watched Tennessee from field level yesterday. They didn't look bad. Do you think South Carolina's going to fare better at Texas A&M? They've got to play Clemson still. They got to play Kentucky still. You quickly start seeing how things could unravel. Now, they got Furman this weekend. Should be okay. I have my fingers crossed, doubly, if you're listening on podcast. But it could, with this kind of schedule, it could quickly snowball. And injuries piled up on them and continue to pile up on them. So it could snowball. So this game right here, this North Carolina win, that is a classic check-back game. About a month from now, you're going to want to check back because you know as well as I do, if you've watched this sport for any length of time, there are games early in the year where you put a value on it the moment it happens. So the value we put on this yesterday is really, really good for North Carolina. South Carolina's terrible. That's just the average feel that I got from the game when I polled a few of you. Well, we could get, I don't know, a month down the road, and maybe South Carolina is just a disaster. And so in your mind, you look back and you say, maybe I shouldn't have thought that highly about Carolina after that. Or maybe South Carolina goes and upsets Georgia, shocks the world, and meanwhile North Carolina's just rolling, and you're thinking to yourself, at the time, yeah, I was impressed with that win they had, but it was even more impressive than I imagined. We didn't really know how big a win and how good a win that was for North Carolina. Check back game. We have them all over the place. Check back game. Check back about a month from now.